Good evening, Steve Helfer, the smoking section. Welcome every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Tonight we have a treat in store for us because my co-host, Emily Ouija, is doing a Skype interview with a gentleman named John Buck, who is from the United Kingdom. And of course, he is a fellow smoker and of the unapologetic variety. And he was working in the pub industry before smoking was outlawed in pubs. So he has a good perspective on how it not only changes business and society, but we're also interested in bringing smokers together, at least to share their experiences of what appears to be, from our perspective at least, a war on us. And without further ado, I'm going to see if I can get to this Skype interview, and we'll see what happens here. We'll run it and see what happens. I'm very interested in hearing Emily interview Mr. Buck. So let's go here.
Hey, so I'm talking to John from Lancashire. John, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So it's funny, I actually remembered you from your story from Pat Nurse's website that was called October Resistance.
Yeah.
And I remember in 2014 she was doing all these things called Tabber's Tales, which now from our American viewers, a tab is a slang for a cigarette. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because I actually wasn't familiar with what that was until they started doing that October Resistance stuff, which is pretty clever. I think because the month of October is known as Stoptober in England.
Yeah, that's the giving up smoking drive. What we do,
Yeah. So it's actually pretty clever, but we don't have that slang word in the U.S. I don't know if we have a slang for. I'm trying to think. Because you guys have fags and tabs, right?
Yeah. I can't think of another one.
Actually, butts.
Fags mainly.
Fags, yeah. I think here people call them butts. Yeah, I forgot about that one. But I don't really say that, so. But yeah, so I remember reading your story on Tabber's Tales, and I thought that those were so interesting at the time because that was actually when I was first starting to become aware that there was a big presence on the internet of people who were getting, pretty sick of anti-smoking rhetoric, and it was just so interesting to me to hear smokers talking about, what they liked about smoking and. More importantly, even maybe how the smoking bans had affected them. And, that's really what we're trying to do, I think, with a lot of these interviews and calls is just to hear from smokers. So that's one reason I want to talk to you. So you worked in the pub industry in 2007, is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I was a relief manager. We would, when the pub company had a pub that didn't have a manager in it, we'd go in and look after it for a while.
And as a manager, when you say relief manager, is that more of a long-term thing, like you would do it for a few weeks or a few months, or?
It'd be mainly a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Yeah. Sometimes the manager would just be on holiday, so we'd just go cover for them.
And you liked doing that work?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, we got to travel a lot around the country, so saw quite a lot of places we've never been before.
Yeah.
Met a lot of people. Yeah.
That sounds pretty interesting. So you experienced firsthand when the smoking ban came into effect in 2007 in the UK. You experienced that firsthand. You were working in the industry.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty interesting in your Tabber's Tales, but you're talking about how they kind of prepared you in advance, kind of talking to different managers and people working in the trade, saying that we're getting ready for this ban. What did they talk about at that time?
They told us that the ban was going to be a good thing. That once we'd banned smoking in all the pubs, all these non-smokers who didn't use pubs would start coming out and using the pubs. They were staying away because they didn't like smoking. Once we got rid of that, pubs would be busier. The environment inside the pubs would be a lot better. They spent a lot of money building smoking shelters outside the pubs as well, trying to make a nice environment outside for smokers. But the weather in England is terrible. You don't have a good time smoking outside.
In Boston too. Yeah. But that's interesting to me that at the time that they were actually preparing and building shelters, because now, I think it's a bit different in England than in America, but we don't have any outdoor shelters at all in most places.
Yeah.
No, I mean, not really. I think even now, still in England, you're allowed to smoke in most pub gardens, right? Outside.
You are, yeah.
Yeah, so most places here, at least in Boston and Massachusetts, you can't do that.
Right. There were a lot of pubs as well that didn't have land outside where they could build any shelters. A good deal of pubs did have gardens where they could put something outside, but there was a lot as well that just had nowhere to put any shelters. But the pubs the ones I was specifically working at the time, they did tend to have a bit of land, car park, garden, somewhere where they could build something.
I think it's interesting because to me it kind of shows a change in mentality, in these 10 years that have intervened that, back then I think they were very concerned, it sounds like, at least with providing some kind of accommodation outside, but now that's probably way down in the list of priorities. And of course they're trying to get rid of smoking outside basically as well. So
They are.
yeah, it shows how far we've come in 10 years. So that's interesting. I mean, did you see any protests, actual protests by pub owners or patrons once the smoking ban came into effect?
No. I think they'd all pretty much got used to it, and they were all believing the story as well that once we got rid of the smokers, everybody else would start coming in the pubs. So yeah, from the management side of it, the bit I was working in, people felt quite confident about it. They thought it was, in the long term, going to be a good thing.
And was there a point, do you think, that people realized that the non-smokers were not going to start coming in droves? Or did that happen from your experience? I don't want to put words into your mouth.
Yeah, that did happen, yeah.
It did happen.
Yeah, I got out of the industry about 6 months before it started getting really bad because I could see the route it was going. And my ultimate goal was to have a pub of my own at the end of the day as well. And I didn't want to run a pub where I couldn't welcome smokers in. So I left the industry completely.
So that was part of your decision to leave as well, was just that you didn't like having to work in an industry that wouldn't welcome smokers.
Yeah. And it wasn't long after about 6 months after the ban came in, I left. And then probably another 6 months after that, they started selling off the managed pubs that I used to work in. And eventually they sold all of them because none of them were turning a profit anymore. Oh. And on the tenanted side as well, the landlords on the tenanted side were quitting in droves as well.
Wow, yeah. That's amazing.
And it happened really fast.
Wow. Mm. And I read something interesting in your interview, I think, in your Taber's Tale, from 2014. You ended your piece kind of with the thought that the indoor bans were all about saving bar staff from the illusory threat of secondhand smoke. But do you really, I mean, now looking back, even a few years after writing that piece, do you think that really was what the bans were about? I mean, I know that's what, at the time, people said they were about. It was about saving workers from secondhand smoke, but it seems like to me that in the last few years, we've actually heard many prominent anti-smoking campaigners basically admit that it wasn't about that at all. It was about denormalizing smoking. Yeah,
that's correct. It was, the big push was to protect bar staff from secondhand smoke. But in my experience, at least 80% of the staff were smokers themselves.
Right.
So, and then when the pubs started shutting, fair enough, they're all now protected from secondhand smoke, but they're all allowed to work.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because, I mean, do you think that if at the time they had been honest about the reasons, of saying, well, we want to have indoor bans because we want to make it difficult for people to smoke, we want to make it less normal, do you think that the pubs would have gone along with it as easily?
No, I don't think they would. The pub industry wouldn't have been interested in forcing smokers to quit. They're a hospitality industry, aren't they? If smokers make up the bulk of their customers, then they want to cater for them. They don't want to tell them that they're becoming part of this big push to make everybody quit smoking.
Wow.
It's nothing to do with the industry at all, that, is it? And no, they wouldn't have gone along with it if the truth was told from the beginning.
That's an excellent point. I actually had never seen it in quite that light before because I always think of it as, sort of the public being fooled. But I think the point you're making is that the industry, to some extent, was also fooled by that. Yeah, very interesting. So you mentioned also the effects of the smoking ban on your family. They used to gather at the pub with your family really regularly. It was a nice place to play pool, get together. And you mentioned that your mom started having trouble having to get up and go outside to smoke once the bans came into effect. I think you also mentioned bingo games near you. That affected a lot of people, older people who like to play bingo. They couldn't smoke anymore during the games. I've seen the same thing in Boston, that there used to be a lot of bingo halls around here. They're basically just closed because no one's interested.
Yeah, that was a pity with the bingo because we didn't go very often. It was occasionally when we had a day off. We'd go down and play bingo on Monday night, and we eventually got to know because all the old people that went there, they were all regulars in there every Monday night, and we got to know quite a few people. But again, after the ban, old people, they can't keep getting up and going outside, especially when the weather's bad.
Right.
So turnover dropped pretty quickly by about 50%. They still do it, the club's still open, and they still do the bingo, but there isn't half the number of people that used to go there anymore.
It is sad, but I think you made this point in your piece that, for a lot of people, that was probably the bulk of the social life that they had, and you wonder what are they doing now?
Yeah, a lot of them, especially those old folk, probably doing nothing. They don't have that social life anymore, do they? If they're a smoker. And what you were saying about my family as well, it's not just if you're a smoker, because when we all used to get together and go out, we were all smokers apart from my dad. And he didn't smoke, but he's always been fine with it. But once we all started having to go outside for a cigarette, some of us have to wait inside with my dad, some of us would go outside, and it just got annoying. And so my dad hated the smoking ban just as much as the rest of us did, and he's not smoking.
Right. That's probably the biggest effect, I feel like, is just the disruption of social life. Even now, I still go out to bars and I don't enjoy it as much because it's always like, either you have to go out by yourself or with someone else. Actually, one thing I was thinking of last night is that sometimes you have to go outside with someone you don't particularly like. Like if the only other person in the group who smokes is someone you don't particularly like, then you have to go out with them and it's awkward. But
on the same note, sometimes when we're in a pub and we go outside and have a smoke, it's other smokers out there, and we get talking and we meet new people that way as well.
That's true. That does happen sometimes too. Yeah.
Yeah. We have this thing in common that we hate that's put us outside having a cigarette, but we get to meet other like-minded people as well.
Well, that's interesting. Do you find that you actually meet a lot of smokers who hate the bans and hate having to go outside? Because I unfortunately don't feel that to be the case in Boston. I feel like most people just aren't interested in talking about it and they never really think about it. So, do you meet like-minded people?
I do, yeah. Usually in pubs, when you go out and have a cigarette, you meet other people who are doing the same thing and hate the smoking ban, and you get talking about it. But I've met a lot of other people as well at work, just friends and people in general, who haven't really been affected by it and think, oh, it's a good thing. And they'll say things like, my clothes don't stink of cigarette smoke when I go home.
Right.
But who goes for a night out and then wears the same clothes?
I know, it's true, yeah. I know, and most people shower, every day anyway in the morning. So I never saw what the big deal was about that.
But I didn't either.
I also always thought it was kind of a nice thing, going out. It was almost like a badge of honor. Like you've gone out, your clothes smell. It was something. Like it was an experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about now? Do you obviously do still go out to bars? And you smoke, but did you mentioned in your piece that you and your family had started kind of doing things more at home as well. Do you still do that?
Yeah, we do that a lot more now. We do still go out every now and then, more now than when the ban first came in. We do still occasionally go out to the pub, but we do a lot more things. Before the smoking ban, I never had beer in the house, I never drank at home, but now we'll stay in, have a night in, watch something on the telly, have some friends round. There's so much entertainment in a home these days, isn't there, that you really don't need a pub if you find it unwelcoming. So we spend a lot more time at friends' houses at our own house these days than we ever did before. Yeah,
I've had the same experience. I think I used to never really drink at home, but now I see more the pleasure of it, just being able to do whatever you want in your own home. I think the only disadvantage of it is that you don't get to meet new people and have new experiences. It's all very controlled. About who's there and what entertainment you're going to have. So, it's unfortunate. You said you mentioned that talking to colleagues, other people who think that the ban is a good thing. Do you ever feel like you get any kind of bias for being a smoker, that people in your life at work or other friends treat you differently now?
No, I've never got that, no. All the anti-smoker hatred that I see tends to be other people's experiences. I think where I live, people are a lot more easygoing, and nobody really that I have contact with tends to have any problem with me being a smoker. No,
Yeah.
I've never found that.
That's good. Yeah, I find that it really differs now, because I've been talking to people in different parts of the world, and it just seems to really differ. I think in America, in my case, it's a little different because I did live overseas for a really long time, and I only moved back to the States when I was in my late 20s. And I always had the impression that America was very anti-smoking, and I think it is a little bit more advanced here and in other countries. People just tend to not be against bans here. They just see smoking as a bad thing. But I'm glad to hear that in other places it's not quite the same.
Yeah. We was in America in September last year. We went to Nashville.
Oh, did you?
And, yeah, the dream holiday.
I've never been there. I'd like to go. Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing, yeah. But there was loads of smokers over there as well. And I thought with America, it might be a bit different to how it is here. But where we actually stayed, there was a lot of smokers. Everybody were tolerant. The bars, if you were bars that allowed only over 21s in, let people smoke.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
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 So that was really good.
I think you'll find it differs in the U.S. because certain states and even certain cities can make their own laws about that. So it differs a lot. Massachusetts has a statewide indoor ban, but there are still many states where they don't have statewide bans. So it's a good thing. I mean, at least you can travel around the U.S. and find different places that are still relatively free.
Yeah. There's always somebody campaigning for the next ban, though, isn't there?
Oh, I know. There always is. Yeah. I always get scared because I think the nearest state to me that still has some indoor smoking is Pennsylvania. So Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. And it just seems like every few years you'll hear someone proposing that Philadelphia should ban smoking in all bars, even though it's only quite a small number that still have smoking. So there's always that push. And then, what I'm seeing here in Massachusetts is that it just goes further and further. That they're trying to ban smoking in parks and in playgrounds and on the beaches and even in downtown of certain areas they want to ban smoking. So, it's always just going to be pushing for more and more.
The bit that annoys me most about the campaigning is they'll have a campaign, they'll try and get a ban in, and if it doesn't happen, they'll do the same thing again the following year, and they'll keep doing it until they wear them down, and then the ban comes in. But once that ban's in, there's no further movement on it, is there? Once it's done, it's done.
It's done, yep. And I often wonder how difficult it would be to repeal these kind of bans. I don't know. I mean, I think that's what's unfortunate about it, is that once it passes, as you said, that's it. Yeah. I think what's interesting is I think a lot of people don't realize is that there are people who this is their full-time job. This is what they do. They make pretty good livings at doing it. And their full-time job is to go around from place to place and push for smoking bans. I think a lot of people think that this is just something people do in their spare time, as out of the good of their hearts, to ban smoking. But no, I mean it's a job like anything else.
It is, and we pay for it as well. Over here, the anti-smoking campaigners over here get paid for what they do out of taxpayers' money.
Right. Right. So, I mean, we're basically paying people to restrict our liberties.
Correct.
Yep. What about taxes? I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I know that in England, there's quite high taxes on cigarettes. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're very high in England, yeah. Mm-hmm. Although I haven't paid tax on cigarettes for a long time. English taxes, anyway.
Oh, good.
Yeah. We go to Belgium, stock up.
I've heard about this, about going to Belgium. So is this a regular thing that you can take, like a ferry? Is it a ferry or?
It is, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So even with the cost of taking a trip to Belgium, it works out financially?
Very, very well, yeah. They have discounted trips occasionally, so we just go on those. We don't pay the full price. We wait for a cheap trip to come up. It's a 2-hour drive from where I am to the ferry terminal. And then you're on the ferry overnight. They've got bars.
Oh,
it's just like having a night out or going away for a weekend or something. So you don't really worry about the cost, do you? Because you're doing something else anyway.
It's kind of entertainment as well. Yeah.
But if I buy 200 cigars in Belgium, then the money I'll save pays for the trip.
Wow, so, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard about this Belgium thing. And what about plain packaging? Because we actually had my dad on the show recently, who lives in the Netherlands, and we started talking about plain packaging. What's the status? I get confused because different countries seem to have different laws right now in different stages. But what's the status of, like, the cigarettes you buy in Belgium? Do those have the supposed plain packaging?
No, they're not quite as bad. They do have the big graphic images on them.
Right.
And the warnings, but they're not all in green like the ones in England are. You can still have the logos on, and it tells you. You can see what you're buying. It's just got the big horrible pictures on it.
Oh, interesting. So I don't think I've actually seen these English packs. You said they're all green, completely green.
Yeah. The pack colour's all green. There's no logos on them. They've just got the big picture and the warning on, and then you've got the brand in small letters.
Wow. Well, it does have the brand name, but not in any kind of special font or logo.
No.
Wow.
No.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh.
And it's quite funny actually, because we have a smoking shelter at work, and people compare what pictures they've got, and it's not doing anything to stop people smoking. It's just a comedy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. Someone pointed it out recently, as that they found it disturbing that smokers were actually kind of making fun of and collecting these packs. But I didn't find it disturbing. I actually find it to be a good sign that smokers take it that way. You know, that they're not taking it seriously.
They're not. No.
Yeah. And what about, do you see a lot of people using just like like special cigarette cases in order to not even have to look at these things?
No, I use one myself because I smoke cigars, so I get them in a big box of 50, which I put into a tin. But I've not seen anybody else using tins. They seem to carry the patch around with pride, I think.
That's funny, yeah. Interesting, yeah. I was actually thinking about getting my dad a present of a cigarette case, but I'm not sure if he would like it or not. I guess something else I wanted to talk about a little bit was just why do you want to participate in doing this interview? As you said, where you live, you feel like you have your circle of friends, your family who are still smokers. You seem to be reasonably happy with your routine of kind of sometimes staying home. Why do you want to participate in an interview like this, talking about smoking and about indoor smoking bans?
Two reasons. The first one is because of when I was working in the pubs and I was doing a job that I enjoyed, and it was going to lead on to bigger and better things, and the smoking ban ruined that for me. And with all the pubs that have closed down as well, those pubs that I used to enjoy going into, which are now closed, pubs are very different now to what they used to be. We had a local pub where we could just walk in. I could go in on my own. There'd be people there at the bar that I knew, people I could talk to. Now pubs are very much food orientated. They let children in. They're completely different to the pubs we knew. So it's done an incredible amount of damage, which I'm quite angry about. And the other reason is, like we were saying earlier, I don't really have any friends or people I know that don't like smokers, that it doesn't really impact me in that kind of a way. But I know from talking to other people, bloggers, people from different places from around the world who do have that, they do feel denormalised and everything. And so to speak to somebody in another country who's doing something about it, it's just like a way of joining in for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you still read, you mentioned blogs, do you still read a lot of blogs that talk about these issues?
I do, yeah. I have a reading list which I go through each day, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. This has been really interesting, and I wish you all the best, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Well, that was a great interview, and it's good to see smokers aware of just how corrupt and how false the anti-smoking movement is, and the effect it has on a large segment of people to ostracize and alienate them from social areas. And I think that really taints our society as a whole. So please tune in next week, 7 p.m. Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Good night.